Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey, and I just want to take a couple minutes to discuss the relational connection issue as it relates to the type of psychology involved that is really causing so many people to fail. And so, when you look at, when I talk about relational connection, just understand, I'm not in the Skinner box, so to speak, when it comes to dog training. I mean, the type of methodology, the type of, the type of ideology that many, trainers, dog behavioralists are marketing is the very type of connection. What that represents by way of relational connection is what is the very problem. So, once you understand relational connection, what you'll find and what you'll discover are the reasons why some, are going to be, why some are successful and why others fail within the exact same systems of training. Okay, why these ideas break down for some but not others. And what you're going to discover is, what it's going to reveal is exactly what I'm showing within the system of training. I'm showing the very deep connection dogs share with us. It's profound. It goes beyond just the surface. And, the problem with what is seen from the surface by way of dogs moving around doing a sit or a down or a stay is that can't always be trusted just from appearances as to being meaningful, as to it representing that the person is truly in a leadership position. Because again, if you look for if you want to make a comparison, an example to follow, you needn't go any further than parenting itself and look at the 4 styles of parenting. What you'll find, if you go and research permissive parenting, you're going to find the exact same type of very destructive path. You're going to find, it parallels exactly as to why so many people, why they respond the way they do, why they're so resistant to change. And so, even when you look at the type of ideology being promoted by these trainers, this type of weak and very feel good and emotional, self-focused type of ideology, it really, what it's doing is doing the same thing in the dog world as it relates to within the human world when it comes to behavior issues. So, what you'll see is the dog owners is being objectified at a certain level. The dog is basically running the show, so to speak, but they're still staying within the framework of the pack relationship. But all the behavior issues represent that there is a misalignment of the roles. And even with how the dog owner responds to professional help, it aligns the same way. They'll go towards this type of methodology that represents feeling good. It's all framed up within the positive type of way of thinking. But if you break it down and take it a step further and understand dogs at the level I do, it'll make complete sense as to why so many people are struggling and why they're very resistant to this whole thing about leadership. So the word leadership and what's happening even within the framework of discussing the dominance issue itself, these people who are what they're doing is they're exploiting these ideas about learning. They're at the same time totally misrepresenting the dominance issue. They're taking the issue itself and they're turning it into something, they're labeling it, and they're almost up into the level where they're saying, well, if you go against or reject our methodology, about how dogs can learn, then you must be, you must be either don't know what you're talking about, or a dog abuser, or they take these extreme, and they'll use extreme language, and it's ridiculous. But the problem is when you have a society that is very self-focused, and this type of permissive psychology is at work. What they're doing is they're buying into that they're buying into that lie, so to speak, and it just creates this type of circle, this type of effect where it's just like going into this continuous loop where the dogs are the ones ending up getting blamed. And it's just like parenting. If you look at the permissive dynamic, in the end, look at that pattern. Where the parent becomes a enabler, and that's how I look at the trainers that are marketing this type of methodology. They're basically enablers. I mean, they're just like a drug dealer on a street corner peddling this type of way of connecting with dogs, and people are buying into this. Very, very popular. And they're really even trying to suggest that popularity represents truth, which it really does not whatsoever, not always at all. But what's happening is, you look at the permissive dynamic, the same thing happens with the permissive parent. They start to shift the focus, say, to the other parent, especially when, say, one parent's calling attention to the child, saying this child is, say, narcissistic, they don't have any empathy, they're out of control, and perhaps parenting itself played a role in creating that, but now the child is owning that, starting to own what's happening, so to speak. But the permissive parent is trying to quarterback and trying to shift the focus away. And what happens is the end result is the issue doesn't get fixed. Okay, just like in the dog world, behavior issues aren't getting resolved because people are twisting and they're turning this stuff, trying to turn it around and turn it into something that it's not. And there's reasons for that at certain levels, but it really all totally comes back to how we think. But in the end, too, even in the permissive parenting dynamic, what happens is the parent ends up, that permissive parent ends up being frustrated and feeling like a walking mat in the very end. So nothing ends well, okay? And the kid is going to be out of control, or they're going to come up against the wall, so to speak, in their life. And the parent that is trying to focus on the issue, I mean, they're going to end up wanting a divorce or whatever. I mean, you see it. It's an absolute nightmare. It's a destructive nightmare. And so it parallels exactly with what certain interplays between dogs and owners. It really does. But it's very difficult. But the whole focal point here is how I show this is that the difficult truth has to be it has to be a challenge. It has to be you have to see where you're at so that you know where you need to go. And so I understand the relational connection issue probably better than anyone. I really do. I don't talk a lot about. You can read my credentials. I don't focus on that because I don't promote myself that way. I try to be as humble about it as I can, although because again I can promote my credentials, but you're still going to have the same issue here with if I try to overmarket or oversell myself, then the problem is the dog owner themselves don't come to a realization of where they're at, because ultimately the focus totally shifts onto them rather than the dog, because it's relational. The primary influencing part of this, the thing that creates change, meaningful change, is the dog owner. So therefore, if you market it a certain way, then you're going to end up in arguments with people, and it's still not going to end up well, because again, so long as they're holding on to, just like the permissive parent, so long as they're holding on to this way of thinking and interacting and how they see the relationship of what's happening behavior-wise, you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, what has to happen is that dog owner or that parent's got to bottom out in their own thinking. I mean, they have to come to a point, a intersecting point, where they see it and then they go towards changing it. So even here in the system, it is not about criticism the way, when people come to me, I already am, at that point where I already recognize they want help. Okay, because you go into my site, you're going to see, me talk about these issues, and so I make sure I do, because there has to come a point where the person is starting to challenge their own thinking. They have to come to a point where they say, okay, I've tried this 5, 10 times, it's not working. Perhaps I'm missing something. And this is where the whole science of dog training issue is a problem, because it's, people are really trying to say it is science and this and that and the other thing. What I show very clearly is it's not walking hand in hand with truth. Okay, there's a real problem here. It's nature is the whole. It's not part or piece of something. It's mind and body. Okay, and if you read my book, I really would encourage you to read my book if you're seeking out answers about the science of dog training and why it's a problem and why why it breaks down, why I show that it's morphed into a type of belief system. In my book called The Mind and Body Connection, I break this whole issue apart, and at the same time, I do reveal the relational connection part of this, okay, which is the primary influence. It's what is at work, because again, it's mind body, and so if you look at the approaches used, you have to be able to see it through that framework. When I'm looking at behavior, I'm on a whole different. I'm not in that box. Okay, I'm looking at things totally different than probably most are, for a reason. Okay, because I'm analyzing psychology, connection. I look at behavior issues within that framework of that, and I've already I'm operating off a whole different type of model. It's a relational model. So again, really encourage you to check out my website. Again, when you come in and look at, say, me moving the leash a certain way, or my methodology, the appearances are very deceiving. I've already got a three-dimensional view of the relationship, how a dog's mind reacts, and what is happening on the owner end of things as they're interacting through this model. There's certain interplays happening there that take hold, that if you're just looking at it through a certain lens or through a certain type of emotional bias, it's going to challenge you. But again, I really encourage you to be open-minded about it, because what I'm doing is working off a whole different type of model altogether. And then what it does is it impacts the dog's decision-making at the core level. And so all unwanted behavior issues, they pull back. And what you're going to see is meaningful change happen. So, there's ideas about learning theory and all this stuff. I break all those down, I discuss that. There's a lot of things that can be very deceptive if you're not putting it within the right behavioral context, the right relational context. If you're not stepping back far enough from it, seeing it, you're going to be putting, say, an ideology basically ahead of a dog's needs. Because again, I ask the question, people will, really attack, this whole dominance issue, but, but they won't actually stop to look at it and say, are we missing something here? Are people going home and things if they aren't changing, do we even know about it? Are we following up, we're calling them, are we checking into it, are we getting feedback? And then, if things are breaking down at certain levels, are we looking at it and saying, okay, are there certain things that are consistent in that? Okay, and then that will reveal truth. I mean, that's how I arrived at where I'm at. Many years ago was, and trust me, I've tasted both glasses of the wine, so to speak. Most people who are going in and debating this stuff, they have not done that. I mean, they're just indoctrinated to a certain way of thinking, and so they're just totally sold out. They have a suicide pact with these ideas, and so when things break down, it makes sense to me why they're ignoring it, and they're basically willing to, to sacrifice dogs on this altar of this type of belief system, and it's a sad fact, and it's very, very disconnected right now. So Anyway, just encourage you to check out my website. If you have any questions, you can contact me anytime. I'm more than happy to answer them. I hope you have a great day.